Through this past semester, I have learned that creativity is the ability to see things through a different set of lenses than the average person. This can relate to anything from drawing a picture, to figuring out a math problem, to deciding how to make it in the world. Creativity is no longer something that is only found in the fine arts classroom. It is something that is both wanted and needed in every aspect of life. Before this semester, I believed this theory, but I had no idea just how important it truly was. If we do not teach and encourage creativity in everything we do as teachers, then our students risk going into the world with a skewed belief that everything is black and white, and that can be very dangerous. In the article, Teacher and Student Perceptions of Creativity in the Classroom Environment, Denise Fleeth discussed how after observing a study she saw that both students and teachers believe that a classroom environment which enhances creativity provides students with choices, accepts different ideas, boosts self-confidence, and focuses on students' strengths and interests. On the other hand, in an environment which inhibits creativity, ideas are ignored, teachers are controlling, and excessive structure exists. Like Fleeth says, it can be as simple as giving your students choices. One example of this that comes to mind is my freshman math teacher in high school. She made her math classroom a creative hub. She pushed us to see if we could find new ways to solve problems. This made me an overall much better thinker and has helped me find solutions in all of my classes. She gave us freedom to think the way our brains did and didn't confine us to one path. My freshman math teacher did just the opposite of what Ken Robinson talked about in his TED Talk, School Kills Creativity. He discusses how he believes that our school system is run off of the interests of industrialism and the image of it. He goes on to explain that by this he means that the school system is producing students in a factory-like system. He finds it strange that the only thing that keeps the students organized is their age. This idea is extremely interesting to me because it really doesn't make sense that my age defines that I am a sophomore in college. By expecting me to perform at the same level as every other 20-year-old, it makes me either become lazy to fall back and stay where everyone else is, or it makes me work much harder than I should to catch up to my pre-established level. Making each one of your students the exact same takes away the option of different paths. Growing up, my parents always used art to connect with me. They explained to me that God is the most amazing artist of them all. He's better than Frida Kahlo, they would say, and he's better than Picasso and Monet put together. This thought blew my mind. There was a God that was better at art than anyone I had ever heard of before. To this day, I still believe that God is the best artist out there. He has created more colors than anyone can ever imagine. He has handmade each and every one of us while still being able to not make any that are the exact same. And like all great artists, he leaves all of his art open for interpretation. God has to be a creative person. Otherwise, why would he give us free will? He has given us the opportunity to think creatively and decide the right choice. Like it says in my life verse, Ecclesiastes 3, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. I have picked this as my life verse because it constantly reminds me that God is the artist and not me. I can try as hard as I can to get my hands dirty with paint so I look like I know what is going on, but at the end of the day, God is the only one who truly knows what the painting of life is going to look like. But it sure is generous of him to let me feel like I helped. This concept is what I decided to base my art piece on. I have drawn God's hand covered in paint. This is to remind myself that it doesn't matter how much paint is on my own hands. The only paint that really matters is the paint that is on him. God obviously values creativity. Or like I said before, there would not be free will. So how prideful would it be to not give this gift that God has so generously and graciously gave to us to our students, whether they recognize God or not? I have made a promise to myself that my future classroom will be covered in God paint. Even though my class will probably be literally covered in paint due to the fact that I plan to be an art teacher, when I say covered in God paint, I mean this more metaphorically. I mean that from the second my students walk into my classroom, they will be able to pick the path that they choose. This will range all the way from artistic interpretation to the way I will handle my behavior issues. I will help my students see art assignments as problems that they must solve so they can practice the idea of creative idea making. I will show them that their ideas are valid. I will show them that their differences are what make them glow and should never be what make them burn out. With a classroom that is based on creativity comes great responsibility. I cannot get lazy and rely on my assignments to do all of the creative teaching. I have to show them that there are many ways to be creative. One example of how I will use the definition of creativity in every aspect of my classroom, and not just in the work itself, is when I do a project over personalization. This will be a perfect time to explain to my students that what makes them different can be amazing. I will challenge them to think of things to include in their piece that no one else has. Like I briefly said prior, I will also use this in the way I handle behavior. I will have a discipline plan for my students that starts with reminding them that everything is their choice. Just like God has done for us by giving us free will, I will not hope for my students' failure. I will do everything in my power to make them successful. But if they choose to take another path, that is okay as long as they are willing to handle what comes next. With this, it is important to me to remind myself and to make it aware to my students that I too sometimes take the wrong path. But I will also remind myself and my students that no matter what path any of us choose to go down, God still has paint on his hands. He is still holding the paintbrush and will continue to try and make my life art piece magnificent.